Two people, same age, same city, same $85,000 salary. They graduate around the same time. They both get decent jobs. They both live in normal neighborhoods. Nothing extreme. Fast forward 30 years. One retires at 55. The other is still working at 67. And honestly, kind of has to. The difference wasn't some genius stock pick. It wasn't inheritance. It wasn't crypto. It was car payments. One of them financed a $650 a month car in their late 20s, then upgraded every 5 or 6 years. Nothing crazy, just normal cars. Slightly nicer each time. Because, I work hard. I deserve it. The other drove something reliable, paid it off, and kept it. That $650 payment doesn't just cost $650. Over 3 decades, it quietly turns into over $500,000 in lost wealth. Not because of the car itself, but because of what that money could have become. And almost nobody runs this math before signing. Today, I'm going to show you the real lifetime cost of car payments. Not just the sticker price, not just the monthly payment, but what that decision actually does to your long-term wealth. We're going to run the math most people never run. You'll see how compounding quietly turns a normal $650 car payment into a 6-figure, sometimes 7-figure, mistake over time. And this matters more right now than ever. It's 2026. Auto prices are near record highs. Interest rates are still elevated compared to the last decade. The average new car payment in America is hovering around $700 a month. This isn't a small line item anymore. But here's the bigger issue. It's not just math. There's a psychological trap built into the way we buy cars. By the end of this video, you'll see exactly how one normal car decision can quietly delay retirement by a decade. My name is John, and I spend way too much time thinking about how everyday financial decisions compound over decades. If you're someone who works hard, makes decent money, but still feels like building real wealth is slower than it should be, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Look, I'm not anti-car. I like cars. Most people do. But what I am against is invisible math. Because the car payment problem isn't about transportation. It's about what that payment does to your future. So let's break down what the normal car buyer actually signs up for, and why it's far more expensive than it looks. Here's what most people don't realize. The normal car buyer isn't doing anything crazy. They're not buying a Lamborghini. They're buying a $45,000 SUV. Very middle class. Very reasonable in 2026. Let's run the numbers. $45,000 vehicle, 10% down. That's $4,500 up front. Loan amount, $40,500. Interest rate, 7%, which is pretty realistic right now. 72-month loan. That puts your payment right around $690 to $710 per month, depending on fees. Let's just call it $700. Over 6 years, $700 per month is $50,400 in payments. Add the $4,500 down payment, and you've paid about $54,900 total. Now, how much of that was interest? At 7% over 72 months, you're paying roughly $7,500 to $8,000 in interest alone. So you paid nearly $55,000 for a $45,000 vehicle. Now here's the second punch. According to long-term data from sources like Edmunds and Kelley Blue Book, new vehicles typically lose around 60% of their value within 5 years, some faster, some slower. But that's the average. So after 6 years, that $45,000 SUV might be worth $18,000, maybe $20,000 if you're lucky. You paid $55,000. It's worth $20,000. That's a $35,000 wealth drop. And that's before we even talk about insurance, maintenance, or opportunity cost. And this is where it gets emotional, because $55,000 is roughly 2 years of after-tax income for someone making $85,000 a year. You worked 2 full years of your life for something now worth less than your kitchen remodel. And we haven't even gotten to the compounding part yet. And this is the part nobody talks about. The real cost isn't the $35,000 loss from depreciation. It's what that $700 a month could have become. Let's slow this down and actually run the math. $700 per month equals $8,400 per year. If instead of sending that to a car lender, you invested it consistently, let's say in a broad stock market index fund, what happens? Historically, the S&P 500 has returned around 8 to 10% annually over long periods, depending on the time frame. Vanguard's long-term data shows similar numbers for diversified equity portfolios. To be conservative, let's use 8%. So, $8,400 per year, 8% average annual return 30 years. If you invest $8,400 per year for 30 years at 8%, the future value is roughly $950,000. Not $95,000. $950,000. That's the power of compounding. And it's not magic. It's just math. Now here's the important clarification. I'm not saying if you skip one car payment, you'll have $1 million. I'm saying if you repeat the car payment cycle, upgrading every 5 to 6 years, keeping a payment most of your adult life, that's what disappears. Because most people don't buy one car. They buy 6 or 7 over 30 years. Payment, upgrade, payment, upgrade. And that steady $700 never gets redirected into assets. So what does $950,000 actually mean? It could mean a paid-off house in your 50s. It could mean retiring 8 to 10 years earlier. It could mean the ability to walk away from a job you hate. Or, and this is more common, it's the difference between working because you want to and working because you have to. That's the real contrast. One person has assets throwing off income. The other has nice driveways in their memory and a series of depreciated vehicles. Freedom versus obligation. And here's the uncomfortable part. Almost nobody feels the loss in real time because $700 feels manageable. But compounded over decades, it's nearly $1 million decision hiding inside a normal monthly payment. This is where people get this completely wrong. Because the car payment problem isn't really a math problem. It's a psychology problem. First, lifestyle inflation. You get a raise. Maybe you go from $65,000 to $85,000 a year. You feel progress. And instead of increasing your investment rate, you increase your lifestyle. Slightly nicer apartment, slightly nicer vacations, slightly nicer car. Not crazy, just upgraded. And cars are the easiest place to express that upgrade. They're visible, they're immediate, they signal progress. Which brings us to social signaling. A car sits in your driveway. Your coworkers see it. Your neighbors see it. You see it every morning. It feels like success. It feels like you've made it. But here's the thing. The bank owns it. The asset on your balance sheet isn't increasing. Your liability is. And this is where the normalization happens. Most people don't ask, how much does this car cost? They ask, can I afford the payment? That one mental shift changes everything. Because afford the payment is a cash flow question. But wealth is a balance sheet question. If you think like a payment buyer, you will always have payments. If you think like a net worth builder, you start asking different questions. How long will I keep this? What does this do to my savings rate? What is the opportunity cost? Dealerships understand this psychology perfectly. They don't lead with price. They lead with, what monthly number are you comfortable with? Once you give them a number, they stretch the loan term to hit it. And here's the dangerous trend. 84-month loans. 7-year car loans used to be rare. Now they're increasingly common. Industry data over the past few years shows a significant percentage of new car loans stretching to 72 and even 84 months. That lowers the payment, but it massively increases total interest paid. And it keeps you underwater longer, meaning you owe more than the car is worth for a greater portion of the loan. It's like putting a depreciating asset on life support. Let me give you an analogy. Buying a car based on the monthly payment is like buying a house based on the square footage of one room. It ignores the total cost. It ignores the structure. It ignores the foundation. It feels affordable in the moment. But structurally, it can quietly undermine everything. Now, you might be thinking, but I need a reliable car. Absolutely. Reliability matters. Getting stranded on the highway isn't a financial strategy. But reliability and luxury are not the same thing. There's a massive difference between a $45,000 new SUV and a $20,000 lightly used Toyota or Honda with 40,000 to 60,000 miles on it. Brands like Toyota and Honda consistently rank near the top in long-term reliability studies. A well-maintained Camry, Corolla, Accord, or CR-V can easily run 200,000 miles. Now let's compare the math. $45,000 new vehicle financed versus a $20,000 used vehicle paid mostly in cash or financed for a very short term. That's a $25,000 difference immediately. Insurance is cheaper. Registration is cheaper. Depreciation slows down dramatically after the first few years. The steepest drop in value happens in years 1 through 3. When you buy used, Someone else already absorbed that hit. You're not sacrificing reliability. You're sacrificing ego. And that's uncomfortable. But it's real. Used cars are risky. Some are, which is why you get a pre-purchase inspection for $150 and check maintenance records. That's a tiny cost compared to $8,000 in interest and $20,000 in early depreciation. Time is valuable. Exactly. So is the 10 years of your life you might trade later because you kept a payment cycle going. This isn't about driving junk. It's about driving smart. Let's look at what happens if you delay this 10 years. Because timing matters more than people think. Let's compare two completely normal people. Person A and Person B are both 25 years old. Same income, same city, same career trajectory. At 25, Person B upgrades immediately, buys the $45,000 car, $700 per month, trades it in every 5 to 6 years, keeps the payment cycle running. Person A does something slightly boring. They buy a reliable $20,000 used car. Maybe they finance a small portion or pay mostly cash. Their total monthly cost is much lower. Let's say the difference works out to about $500 per month compared to Person B. Instead of upgrading at 28 or 30, Person A keeps the car until 35, and they invest that $500 difference every single month. Now let's run that math. $500 per month, 8% annual return, 10 years. After 10 years, that account grows to roughly $90,000 to $95,000. Not because Person A is a genius, because they delayed consumption during the most powerful compounding decade of their life, their late 20s and early 30s. Meanwhile, Person B has something different, a nicer driveway history. Now fast forward to age 35. Person A upgrades. Maybe now they buy a $45,000 vehicle, but they either pay a large chunk down from their investment account growth, or they keep investing aggressively because their habits are already built. Person B continues the cycle. Now let's fast forward to 45. That initial $90,000 invested at 25 to 35 doesn't stop compounding. Left alone for another 10 years at 8%, it nearly doubles again to around $190,000 to $200,000, even without additional contributions. And if Person A kept investing even partially during their late 30s and early 40s, the gap widens further. By midlife, it's very realistic to see a $250,000 to $400,000 net worth difference between two people who earned the same income, just because one delayed upgrading cars for a decade. And here's what most people don't realize. The early years matter disproportionately. Now watch what happens when this continues for another decade. Because most people don't just finance one car, they enter the payment cycle. Here's how it usually works. You finance a car for 72 months. Around year 4 or 5, you get bored, or your income goes up, or the warranty is ending. So you trade it in. But here's the problem. You still owe money. Cars depreciate faster than loans amortize early on. So you might owe $22,000 on a car that's worth $19,000. That $3,000 difference? That's negative equity. Dealerships don't make it disappear. They roll it into your next loan. Now your new $45,000 vehicle isn't really $45,000. It's $48,000. And the payment never actually goes away. According to recent Experian Auto Finance data, the average new car payment in America is now over $730 per month. Used car payments average around $530 per month. That's normal now. But let's zoom out. The Federal Reserve's Survey of Consumer Finances shows that the median retirement savings for Americans under 40 is only around $60,000 to $70,000. Think about that contrast. $700 per month to a car. $0 per month to investments. Over 10 years, that's $84,000 in payments. Yet many people in their late 30s haven't even accumulated that much in retirement savings. And this is the dangerous part. The payment feels routine, automatic, expected. But while the car is depreciating in your driveway, your investment account is sitting still, or worse, empty. And that cycle quietly compounds in the wrong direction. Now, you might be thinking, life is short. I deserve to enjoy my money. I don't want to drive a boring car. And look, I actually agree with part of that. Life is short. You should enjoy your money. This isn't about forcing yourself to drive something you hate for 40 years. It's about when you upgrade and how you pay for it. I'm not anti-car. I'm anti-financing a lifestyle before your assets can support it. There's a huge difference. When you buy a nicer car using debt while your net worth is still low, you're borrowing from your future self. But when you buy that same car after building investments, when dividends, rental income, or portfolio growth can effectively cover it, that's a completely different conversation. That's optionality. Optionality means you can afford the car and still invest aggressively. Image, on the other hand, is fragile. It depends on keeping up the payment. And here's the quiet shift most wealthy people make. They delay visible upgrades until their balance sheet is strong enough that the purchase barely moves the needle. The car doesn't define their progress. Their net worth does. Because freedom beats image. Every single time. And here's the dangerous part. This isn't really about cars. It's about your savings rate. Retirement math is brutally simple. The percentage of your income that you invest determines how fast you reach financial independence. If you save and invest 15% of your income consistently, you're on a completely different trajectory than someone saving 5%. And what's one of the biggest things that quietly reduces a savings rate? A $700 car payment. Let's say you earn $85,000 a year. If you invest $1,000 per month, $12,000 per year, at 8%, you can reach roughly $1 million in about 25 to 27 years. Now reduce that to $300 per month, because $700 is going to a car instead. $300 per month is $3,600 per year. At 8%, it takes closer to 40 years to reach $1 million. That's not a small difference. That's a decade or more of your life. Same income, different allocation. One person hits financial independence in their early 50s. The other hits it in their 60s, or maybe never fully gets there. And here's what makes this silent. Nobody feels it immediately. You don't notice retirement getting delayed when you sign the paperwork. You just feel excited about the new car. But mathematically, you may have just signed up to work 10 extra years. Not because you're irresponsible, not because you're bad with money, but because your savings rate quietly dropped from 15% to 5%. And compounding doesn't forgive that difference. That's the real cost hiding behind the monthly payment. All right, so what do you actually do with this? Because this isn't helpful unless it turns into action. Here's a simple framework. First, calculate the total lifetime vehicle cost, not the monthly payment, the total cost. Take the price of the car. Add total interest over the loan. Estimate depreciation over the years you'll own it. Add higher insurance premiums if applicable. Force yourself to look at the 5 or 6 year number. When you see $55,000 spent, $20,000 remaining value, it changes how the decision feels. Second, set a percentage of income rule for cars. For example, the total value of all vehicles you own should not exceed 50% of your annual income, or even more conservative, 25 to 30%. If you make $80,000, that means your car should probably be in the $20,000 to $30,000 range, not $50,000. This prevents lifestyle creep from outrunning your net worth. Third, drive your car for a minimum of 10 years. This is where the magic happens. The average car on U.S. roads is now over 12 years old. Modern vehicles are built to last. The real wealth builder isn't buying cheap, it's extending ownership. Years 7 to 10 are the most profitable years of car ownership. No payment, slower depreciation, lower insurance. That's when you redirect cash to investments. Fourth, invest the difference automatically. If you save $500 per month by not upgrading, set up an automatic transfer into an index fund or retirement account. Don't rely on discipline. Automate it. Make the boring car fund your freedom account. And fifth, never roll negative equity. If you owe more than the car is worth, you don't upgrade. Period. Rolling negative equity is like putting a financial ankle weight on yourself before a marathon. The goal isn't deprivation. The goal is optionality. You want the car to be a small line item in your financial life, not the thing dictating your retirement timeline. Let me paint two pictures. You at 55. No car payment. No consumer debt. Your investments have been compounding for 25 to 30 years. You open your brokerage account and the numbers aren't theoretical anymore. They're real. Dividends hit automatically. Market growth does the heavy lifting. Your house is either paid off or close. You don't wake up to an alarm because you have to. You wake up because you want to. Work becomes optional. Consulting becomes optional. Taking 6 months off becomes optional. When your boss says something unreasonable, you don't panic. Because you have margin. Because you have choice. Now let's look at the other version. You at 65. Still making payments? Maybe not on the same car, but on the next one. Upgrade. Trade in. Roll balance. Repeat. Retirement savings are there, but not enough to feel comfortable, not enough to fully relax. Social Security becomes part of the plan instead of a supplement. You're not broke, but you're not free. You're still calculating whether you can afford to stop working. And here's the quiet truth. Both lives looked almost identical at 30. Same income, same job, same neighborhood. The difference wasn't one massive mistake. It was dozens of small, normal decisions that compounded. One person prioritized optionality, the other prioritized upgrades. And look, there's nothing wrong with liking cars. But the car should never outrun your future. Because when you build assets first, you can eventually buy almost any car you want. When you build liabilities first, you spend decades trying to catch up. Freedom isn't flashy. It's quiet, but it's incredibly powerful. If this helped you see car payments differently, make sure you hit subscribe. I break down everyday financial decisions like this, calmly, with real math, so you can build wealth intentionally instead of accidentally. And I want to know, drop a comment below with your current car payment, just the number, no judgment. Sometimes writing it out makes it real. If you're serious about fixing the bigger picture, go watch Dave Ramsey's Baby Steps Explained for Normal People next, because car payments directly impact your savings rate. Or watch The FIRE Method, What It Really Is, to understand how this one decision can shift your entire timeline. Because this isn't just about cars, it's about freedom. And before we wrap up, quick but important note, I'm not a financial advisor. This video is for educational and informational purposes only. Your situation is unique, your numbers are unique, and you should always consider speaking with a qualified financial professional before making major financial decisions.